Okay, so today's question is the law of rhythm. How do we use the law of rhythm to improve the quality of our spiritual practice? How do we use it to improve the quality of our learning new skills, managing our addictions, and creating change in our life? Okay, so let's get started. We covered the law of resonance previously, and the law of resonance is a two tuning forks on the same frequency vibrate together. Hit one tuning fork, the other one starts to vibrate. The law of rhythm is gently changing the state of vibration and moving it up slightly so that you can stress adapt. Now, with stress adaptation, if you take a small amount of stress, let's say you go to the gym and you can lift this much weight and you lift a little bit more and equalize with that, you adapt to that new level of stress and your body gets stronger. And then you lift a little bit more, and each week, you lift a few kilos more. You get this rhythmic movement and your baseline of strength increases slowly. Where if you try to lift too much weight suddenly, your system's going to collapse, you're going to be in pain, you'll tear a muscle, and you'll go backwards. So this law of rhythm basically says you go through stress adaptation step by step, slowly equalize, and you create a new center of gravity, a new platform, a new center of strength, a new center of mental fortitude by recognizing that moving the resonance slightly up and paying attention to it mentally, or making a change in your character gently, or making a change in your physical strength gently, and just moving the line allows you to shift who you are physically, who you are emotionally, who you are mentally, with a stable, constant change. Now, people who try to make dramatic change suddenly create a law of rhythm where they go, oh, I'm going to go to here, and the law of rhythm pulls back. So the amount of movement one way creates an equal and opposite force the other way, which pulls them into a lower place. If they're not aware of that rhythm, then they may take their will away there and end up in a worse place than they started. So by gently increasing stresses, paying attention to a higher state, equalizing that higher state, we can utilize the law of rhythm for change. And this applies to whether you're managing an addiction, whether you're managing a skill development. With any skill development, you look at what are the founding techniques or principles of developing that skill, and then you develop each area that's needed for that skill development very, very gently and slowly and softly. Once you have the platform, everything lifts up together and becomes more stable. So this law of rhythm is really the heart of success when it comes to creating stable, constant change. When we apply it to meditation, it has a very, very interesting effect. So let's say you are meditating on this meditation object, and you do a visual concentration exercise, and you hold your awareness on the object, and you go, okay, this is a 1 hour meditation, and after a few seconds for most people, or a minute or so for other people, the mind starts to float, and then I'll pull back, and you get this gradual floating off. Then you're aware that you're floating off, and you come back to your meditation object and you pull yourself back in. What's happening is you're creating an unconscious pattern of losing your meditation object and returning to your meditation object. So the unconscious behavior here is you're educating yourself to fail, and then you're educating yourself to correct yourself. And this, as an unconscious rhythm, it will set itself in, so whatever else you're doing in your meditation will have, fail, bring yourself back, fail, bring yourself back. And once that pattern set in, the unconscious mind will reference that in other practices. So we want to avoid doing a long period of meditation to start with. We're not honoring the law of rhythm. We have to go, what is the rhythm of our concentration capacity right now? So you might do something like take a stopwatch and then click the stopwatch. Your thumb is on the starter of the stopwatch, on the button, and you're concentrating on your meditation object. And the moment you feel the mind start to waver, you increase your will, you still got the stopwatch there, and then right at that moment where it's like, oh, okay, I can't do it anymore, click, and you write down, okay, 7 minutes and 20 seconds. And then you have a breather, and then you do it again. And you continue that routine for that 1 hour that you assigned for practice. So what you're getting is perfect practice for 1 hour with short breaks in between. And the concentration capacity is being reinforced. I can concentrate, and it's not relative to time, but the quality of what you're doing is 100% for a shorter amount of time, but that 100% compounds for the hour until the law of rhythm allows you to concentrate continuously for that whole hour, because your unconscious only knows how to be doing what the exercise is perfectly. It doesn't allow, you don't allow yourself for any drift, any floating of the mind or anything else. You're 100% engaged with the stopwatch. You click it, you write down your success. So you're compounding successes. So what happens with the law of rhythm here, after an hour you've compounded all these successes, that all those successes blend into 1 hour of success. And the unconscious mind, when it's interacting with the vibration of your success, it's not referencing time the way we normally see time. So the law of rhythm starts to kick in, that you can concentrate for extended periods of time, and that you rhythmically pick up it within your relationship to time. So here the law of rhythms, it acts in your favor if you rhythmically do 100% pure success, one repetition after another, and don't allow for any floating of the mind. The next way to use the law of rhythm is through a type of compounding, similar to what we just talked about with the stopwatch, but you compound a series of exercises. So let's say you're developing clairvoyance, and clairvoyance requires mindfulness of eye consciousness. It requires one point of concentration through eye consciousness. It requires separation of eye consciousness from day-to-day meditation objects and objects you experience walking down the street in daily living, so that you reduce the stickiness of your eyes to what you see in your environment. And we integrate techniques for that, techniques for when you observe something to step back and allow insight to understand it rather than emotionally, mentally stick to it. So you let the insight mind give you data about something rather than the emotional mind stick to it and make a judgment about it. And then you have vital breathing exercises for the eyes, astral element breathing exercises for the eyes to create equanimity in eye consciousness, and akasha breathing through the eyes to create deeper equanimity, to separate the layers, the matrices of eye consciousness, and then light through the eyes to awaken the clairvoyance. So you have these dozen or so exercises that are lined up, and then use the law of rhythm with each one. You practice each exercise and you compound the successes, and the success might be 1 minute each exercise, and then 2 minutes each exercise, and 3 minutes each exercise. So we have a spiral that compounds an upward evolution and activation of the eye consciousness or clairvoyance, and so we compound rhythmically every exercise that's needed for success. We call this a causation chain. Now the causation, the cause and the effect, the cause has to be a rhythmic increase, a gradual rising of all the conditions needed for the effect. And when you plan and map something like this out, initially we're looking at it in a linear, we need these 10 exercises and we do each one and this happens. And then we look at it in relationship to, these are the exercises inside of time and space, the physical exercises. These are the exercises released of time, the astral exercises. These are the exercises released of space, the mental exercises. And these are exercises that are non-dual, that relate to akasha and the non-duality of the light of the mind. And then as you apply the law of rhythm through these relationships to these continuums, the law of rhythm picks everything up and creates something different to what you started with. So this is a difficult one to explain, but when you, let's say, observe the rising, falling way of thought in relation to eye consciousness, you get a separation of the observer from the observed. And as that separates, you perceive that as I'm less controlled by what my mind touches. But initially, you can't see how that relates to clairvoyance. And then when you do one-pointed concentration visually on an object, everything becomes still, and there's a defabrication of your relationship to what you see. You get a further separation. But still, the mind isn't going, oh, this is clairvoyance. But once you've done all the exercises, the alchemy of using the law of rhythm to raise the capacity of each one of those exercises, clairvoyance arises. So it's something you're not training directly, but the effect is clairvoyance indirectly from the cause. And when you apply the law of rhythm to setting up the framework, when you apply the law of rhythm to how you interact with that skill from an unconscious to conscious relationship, you need to remove your unconscious beliefs that are resisting your clairvoyance awakening, and then you practice the exercises, the awakening takes place. And of course you put the necessary on-off switches in place so that you're not having clairvoyant experiences walking down the street. You only have clairvoyant experiences when you're in a state in which that benefits you. You do not wish to have experiences that don't benefit you. Like when you're driving a car, you want to be fully focused on the road, not spiritual activity around you. Okay, so this law of rhythm, you apply it to these strategies for awakening skills. So the causation chain that leads to the skill, when you rhythmically lift up each exercise, the alchemy makes the effect of the skill appearing. And when it appears, it's sort of like moving through a dream where you're aware of a dream and you start to see things happen until they become more opaque. So they go from a translucent state into a very clear, concise, this is real state. The law of rhythm allows that to happen. If a person tries to break through that veil without the law of rhythm, they can't control the on and off switch. That means it will rhythmically open randomly when they don't want it to. So it could open under certain conditions when they wake up in the morning and seeing stuff as a rhythm, or it may just every time they have any type of emotional trauma or get angry, the system switches it on. There might be the gap in the aura which forms. So we want to use the law of rhythm to have control of the skill. So not only does it affect the alchemy of the awakening of the skill, it also affects your ability to control that skill and switch it on and off. If it's too chaotic, too sudden, too intense in any spiritual awakening, like taking ayahuasca and a person has an experience, you're literally tearing your system open, and once that's torn open, you can't heal it easily, you can't control it, you can't switch it on and off, and that's very akin to schizophrenia. So we want to be very careful about awakening spiritual skills and do them under the conditions of ownership, that you own the skill, you develop it, and you're harmonizing that skill. Okay, so the next aspect of law of rhythm is compounding success. So we can look at any area of our life, and whether we're looking at a child going through the schooling system and they get good grades, they learn information, the information compounds slowly over time, and then they put all that data together and they come up with new ideas. So you compound a range of information over time, and then it evolves into something else. It becomes a creative spark, which allows a person to step out of the box and make something new that wasn't in the box to start with. Now, the law of rhythm, as you're mixing information experiences together, it is seeking to flower. It is seeking to create something new. It's the nature of the universe to evolve and change. And stress adaptation, evolution is the nature of how the whole universe functions. So when we accumulate a large range of data, a large range of experiences, a large range of stresses, and we take all this information, energy and consciousness, and we put it together, there's a rhythmic impetus for flowering, for something new to come out of something that wasn't there before. And the law of rhythm regulates this process of being a creator, being someone who evolves something, who changes something, brings something new into the world. And the law of rhythm is required for this phenomenon to take place. So if you want to develop the next generation computer, you have to know everything about the previous generations and how they work. And then you rhythmically build your database and understanding and experiential knowledge of it. And then you free the mind up to the next level to let the flower open and something new come up. So if you didn't apply the law of rhythm of layering and really knowing your stuff, this can't happen. So if you want to be an innovator, if you want to be a creator, if you want to be someone who generates and brings new things into the world, you look at where you want to go as a continuum with that knowledge, and you know your base really well. You know each layer really, really well. And then you open the mind as, okay, there's a stream of rhythmic knowledge accumulation and knowing insight into something. And then you release time and space moving forward. Where can that evolve to? What's the flower going to look like? And this rhythmic law allows evolution to take place. So when you strategize, okay, I want to develop something new in a particular field of science or sport, you look at all the foundations and you build your information base, and then you release your mind in relation to time and go, where can this go? And you put that question to the universe. Where's the potential? Where's the future of this? And because the law of rhythm has energy and impetus into it, and you release time on that rhythm, it opens up a vision of the future. And it goes, that's where it can go. That's what's going to happen one day. This is where sport's going to go. For instance, sport is going to be putting a lot more attention on fascia development, on biotensecurity of the body in the future, because the other areas of balance and strength have really been, and basic skill development, have really been looked at. But the way to move your mass through the fascia to produce force, that hasn't been well studied. And the methods how to release the muscle and activate the fascia biotensecurity system for power and to build power in it, that's relatively unknown. People know about it, but they don't know how to develop it. So as an example, putting your awareness into studying that scientifically and then metaphysically incorporating it, it's a metaphysical base to how fascia radiates energy and life force that are going to be the keys to how to develop fascia in the future, and how to simplify, remove all the traditional Qigong type exercises of muscle and tendon changing to just activation of the fascia through psychological states of consciousness during training sport. So layering information and then opening and releasing time in relation to your unconscious to what you've done allows you to see the evolution of the future for flowering to take place. So all forms of evolution require the law of rhythm to be understood, or even not understood. You may just do it accidentally and be an innovator. Okay, so the next aspect of the law of rhythm is in how do we get the consciousness to ascension? Because most people listening to this video are on a spiritual journey. They're studying Hermetics or Buddhism or a spiritual discipline, and their spiritual development is about evolving the spirit. How do we defabricate the spirit? So instead of putting anything in and evolving something, we want to defabricate, release for ascension, for the mind to liberate itself. So this process in the law of rhythm is like a reverse psychology to actually building something, to letting go of something. So we go through a process of looking, what are my physical attachments? What am I addicted to physically in my environment? And what are my emotional attachments? What am I emotionally addicted to in my environment? What are my mental addictions? Media and so forth. For many years I was addicted to learning things. I just every day had to learn something to feel satiated. It was a chemical addiction in my brain that I had to input something into my brain to feel good about myself. And then what are your spiritual yearnings? And now we've got to take these physical addictions. How is that affecting my emotional stability? And how's my emotional stability affecting my mental stability? How's my mental stability affecting my spiritual ability to release? and then we line up the areas. And in Hermetics, we line these areas up in fire, air, water, and earth. We categorize them. And then anomalies and things that don't fit, we put into the Akasha category. Now, as you align them, you might go, okay, in the fire element, I have an addiction physically to adventure. I have addiction to controlling my environment. Or you might have an addiction to, I love the feeling of being a leader and people following. Or any aspect of the fire element in the physical that holds you and contains you. And for most men, it's going to be the fire element be the need to control the family, their partner, their kids, their job, their environment. Men need to control. For women, the fire element might become unstable because they may not be in control, that their emotions aren't in control. So it's a different aspect of control. So it's stereotyping, but most of the time you can see those patterns there. Now, when you take that fire element and you go, well, what's my, how does that function astrally? Well, those are astral emotions that are affecting your physical experience and your actions. So as you look at, okay, the fire element of the need for adventure, the need for control, the need for expressing how you feel, to project it, and so forth, how does that affect how you think? So once you align all these fire qualities up, you go, okay, now I've got to rhythmically use the law of rhythm to synchronize my physical behavior with my emotional behavior, with my mental behavior, and apply that to a particular outcome. So you might go, okay, I'm going to align the fire of the mind to concentrate in a way in which the fire fuels me to become powerful at concentrating. So you may tap into the warrior mind. A lot of the people who follow this path are martial artists. And you have this, when you're sparring with someone, you don't want to be punched in the face, so you have a high degree of concentration. You're very, very, very focused in that moment. And when you're in that moment of being focused, there's a, how would you put it, there's a laser beam of the consciousness. And when you take that warrior mind and then you align it through those energies of your physical addiction that are in resonance, of your astral addictions that are in resonance, and then your mental addictions that are in resonance, and you use that fire pillar to align them and concentrate in your meditation, all these energies or statics of the fire element align into a pillar of concentration, a pillar of focus, because you're pulling unconscious energy from your body, pulling unconscious energy from your astral emotions, pulling unconscious energy from your mind, and using the principle of fire to align them. Once you have that alignment, use the law of rhythm to raise those energies up, to slowly pull them into your consciousness, simply by being aware of them. And there's a certain amount of draw that you can use to align everything and synchronize it through this law of rhythm to increase concentration capacity. If, let's say, you switch your combat attitude on too much and you just switch on the warrior and it's a type of willful aggression of your mind, you'll lose the stability of your physical body. The mind's too unstable, so you lost the law of rhythm. You've got to heat up the physical body, you've got to heat up the astral emotions, you've got to heat up the mind, synchronize, and rhythmically now everything's now aligned. I'm going to concentrate on this with a willful mind, and I'm unmovable. You have an immovable mind of the fire pillar. So there's a sensitivity to the body, to the feelings, to the consciousness itself, in which you align everything and rhythmically raise your concentration through the fire pillar. And this raising of energy requires a rhythmic release of the body, rhythmic release of the emotions, rhythmic release of consciousness into the exercise you're doing, so that rhythm pulls the lower energies to the higher. Now, if you don't honor the rhythm, you create a type of burnout in your consciousness. You're excessively focused. Where if you rhythmically raise everything up slowly, the mind begins to absorb the power from the body. The mind begins to absorb the power of the emotions. The mind absorbs the power from the fire pillar of consciousness in your thinking, and it aligns it, makes it one-pointed in the concentration exercise. So there's a slowness in the pace of how you do this. It's the same warrior mind that you use for sparring, same warrior mind used for survival when you're highly focused doing something, but you rhythmically just draw these energies up gently and you stabilize it within your concentration. As it gets absorbed into the spirit that concentrates, there's a liberation that happens. The physical body starts to disappear. You're not aware that you have a physical body because the energies of the fire element are raising up and stabilizing and putting your physical body in a state of equanimity. And as it goes in equanimity, it's there but it's not there. Your emotional sense of self disappears. Your identity of I am doing this, as that energy moves into the mental body, the I isn't there anymore. You are concentration. And then as it gets absorbed into the mind, it works from a lower state, a dual state of flux, into a one-pointed state of concentration. The akasha accumulates underneath. The emptiness or the stillness accumulates because you're rhythmically raising energy gently. You're not switching it on and amping it up too much. That allows the akasha that's accumulating to defabricate the matrices. So your relationship to body thins out even further. Your relationship to any sense of self thins out even further. Your relationship to I am this mind thins out, and your consciousness becomes the pure frequency of concentration because you applied the law of rhythm to raise the energies up. The akasha accumulated as a byproduct of the concentration. It's gentle, it's strong, it's willful, and its presence is full, and the arising of akasha further dissolves and removes all these attachments underneath, and then your fire pillar starts to come into an omnipotent state. And an omnipotent state is simply releasing of time and space, so you recognize the power of the universe to expand itself. The universe is mind substance. And if you're releasing your attachment to your sense of self, to your sense of time, to your sense of space, and letting the mind expand through a rhythmic build-up of the fire element, you experience the fire pillar of the universal mind. The omnipotent nature of how the universe expands itself and continues to grow, evolve, and change. With that process of release, there's a very profound sense of unity with greater good. And that unity with greater good is there's an unconscious impetus for you to want to be part of the evolution of your environment, evolution of your family, evolution of your suburb and the people around you, your community, your city, your country, and the globe. Because that's what the universe does. It's evolving continuously. So you recognize there's this process of ascension and release using the law of rhythm, and there's a sensibility to it. Then the effect unconsciously, as you want to be a part of that expansion on an unconscious level. We call this a path of service. This path of service is very much a unconscious yearning that arises from correct practice. When your mind is coming into resonance with the universal mind which creates and expands, then of course you want to be a part of the evolution from an unconscious yearning. And then your actions of how you think, how you feel, and how you act lose selfishness. You're not trying to hold traditional secrets. You're not trying to contain a system. You're not trying to be a gateholder for anything. You're just sharing universal laws of evolution and growth, and you're very happy to do that. And this law of rhythm, when it's intelligently thought out, there's an intuitive intelligence underneath, that you don't push yourself too hard, but you look at the top of the state, and then you gradually take energy and rhythmically release from the physical, from the astral, from the mental, and you pull it up to that top state. Then what reflects down is not only an insight into what you're doing, but a stability. You're moving the center of gravity of your mind to a higher position. So the stability of the mental, of the astral, of the physical change. And that's what we're after when we apply the law of rhythm. Now, this law of rhythm can be applied to all the pillars, to the air, to the water, and to the earth as well. And then it's applied to your relationship to Akasha itself. And when you go through these 5 stages of applying the law of rhythm, you're going to find that your unconscious cravings change. You're essentially liberating yourself of those things without realizing it. So when we look at you align your fire pillar to the resonance of the omnipotent nature of the universe, your desire to control others falls away. Your desire to have fire addictions emotionally fall away. Your irritability and your desire to express anger fall away, because the law of rhythm has centralized your fire pillar, so you're a more centered human being. And when you look at your black and white mirror and you see things out of center within the fire pillar or any of the pillars, now you have an instant solution. How do I fix that? And you can pull yourself back into the center of gravity of practice. You have the solution to for ascension to take place. Then it's just a matter of action. Apply the laws of rhythm to the elements, to each of the layers of a pillar, and then you raise the energy up into spirit. Now once it's in spirit, the energy reflects back down the line, and it starts eating karma, starts eating those negative energies and pulling them into center, sort of like a magnet on a laser that pulls everything into the center of gravity of the frequency you're working on. And those periphery things just start to decompose, break down, get magnetically pulled in, because you're not giving them attention. If there's an alpha tuning fork for attention, the lesser important tuning forks don't get fed and they fall away. You're not feeding them anymore. So your unconscious priorities change, which means your feelings and your physical experience change. The stability of your mind changes by applying the laws of rhythm. Okay, so we'll put a quiz at the end of this video, and as you go through that, just each point that came up in the video, contemplate it and have some time to think about it. If you look at how to compound knowledge for evolution to evolve the physical science, it makes perfect sense. You layer all the information that relates to the leading edge of the field, and you release time, what happens? The mind can go into the future and go, oh, that's how it's going to evolve. When we look at spiritual growth, you look at the layers of your physical addictions, your astral addictions, your mental addictions, you look at those addictions as power, and then you concentrate in a fire way into that power. The energy is going to rise to the concentrated mind. The akasha is going to accumulate under the mind of concentration. It's going to further defabricate the matrices. Energy will further distill and accumulate in the mind using the law of rhythm. So break down intellectually how the law of rhythm can work for you, and then start looking at easy ways to implement it. You want to start getting success straight away. Time is valuable. Every exercise you do gives you an instant result if it's done correctly. To do it correctly, you have to contemplate what correct is. And then you have to practice, contemplate the result of the practice and the method. How do you improve the method to get a better result? And you circle to get better and better and better at your way of doing it. By sharing what you're doing with other people, you get a merit field of other people benefiting, which amplifies your unconscious knowledge base of what you're doing. So that field of connection of everyone who's practicing something that's similar in similar resonance to you, that's an unconscious field. That organizing power becomes unconsciously accessible to you to do better at what you're doing. So sharing the method you're developing with other people has huge value to your own spiritual growth. Containing it in a small container of yourself creates a smaller mental space, and we need a large mental space for fast evolutionary growth. Small mental space means very slow growth. One's identifying with oneself, one's body, this is me, it's my mind. It's a small container, and small containers don't grow big things. You want to decontain and release yourself to go to the higher states of consciousness. Okay, so law of rhythm.